NVIDIA's $4.4 trillion valuation just smashed the economic reality of an entire country, while your family's grocery bill might be up nearly 20% this year, and it feels like your wallet is shrinking by the week. If you're feeling the pain with every trip to the store, or when you check your shrinking savings, you're not imagining things. Here's the shocking truth. 91% of professional fund managers say stocks are overpriced, yet the market keeps breaking records. How is it possible for Wall Street to soar when Main Street is barely scraping by? In this episode, I'm pulling back the curtain on the $19 trillion disconnect between the markets and your real-life finances. And I'll reveal a 3-step survival plan to help you protect yourself, make smarter choices, and even find opportunities in this chaos. So if you've ever wondered why your investments or paycheck don't seem to keep up with those headlines, this is the one video you need to watch until the very end. Welcome back to Ray Invests, where today we're digging deep into one of the most confusing and honestly infuriating issues in modern finance. Why does the stock market seem to be living in a fantasy world, while your budget faces relentless pressure and the economy around you feels utterly broken? Let's get right into part 1, the disconnect exposed. Why Wall Street and Main Street split paths. Not long ago, I made a video about the crashing state of the economy and the reality none of us can ignore. Unemployment is up, job quality is down, and government statistics just can't sugarcoat it anymore. But here's the head-scratcher. Despite all this obvious pain, the stock market keeps soaring. Remember the global financial crisis back in 2008. Back then, when the economy tanked, so did the stock market. Most people took it as gospel that when Main Street suffers, Wall Street follows. Today, it feels like the rules have changed. The S&P 500 setting new records while millions don't know how they'll pay next month's rent. How did things get so upside down? For decades, people assumed the stock market was a mirror for economic health. Even government leaders point to market gains and say, see, everything's fine. But as we all know too well, that's just not true anymore. The stock market has become a distorted funhouse, reflection of the real economy, not a window into it. What causes this distortion? Let's put some numbers to it. Take NVIDIA. In August, its market cap crossed $4.4 trillion. To put that in perspective, that makes it worth more than the entire GDP of Japan, a country producing everything from electronics to cars to high-speed trains. NVIDIA's market value now surpasses all United States farmland and represents nearly 1/5 of all the gold ever mined in human history. It's mind-bending. Sure, NVIDIA makes powerful AI chips, and AI is getting crazy attention. Everyone wants in. But AI doesn't put food on tables, repave highways, or keep the power on at home. So how can a chip maker, essential as they may be valued above whole nations, churning out real products, feeding millions, and supporting livelihoods? This absurdity is the product of pure speculation. Stock prices are now driven not by utility, but by hype, and where the next wave of speculation will go. This isn't limited to NVIDIA. The so-called Magnificent Seven, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Alphabet, Meta, Tesla, and NVIDIA, now collectively command over $19 trillion in market capitalization. Pause and try to picture that. $19 trillion. If you tried to write that out, you'd need a cheat sheet just to keep track of all the zeros. These numbers have become so inflated that the meaning gets lost. But what's really going on, in a word? Cheap money, speculation, and structural manipulation. If you're feeling this doesn't reflect your reality, you're right. Let's move into part 2, behind the curtain. How cheap money broke the link. To really understand this transformation, you have to rewind to the 1970s. For younger viewers, or anyone not deep into economic history, this is crucial. In 1971, the United States abandoned the gold standard, the backbone of the Bretton Woods system. Before that point, every dollar had to be backed by physical gold. After 1971, the dollar became pure fiat. Money promised by government decree. No ties to gold or anything tangible. Retention check. Still with me? Drop a money bag in the comments. If you knew the United States dollar used to require actual gold reserves, this move was called a temporary measure, just like so many that turned permanent. Looking back, many economists now call this one of the biggest financial mistakes in modern history. It triggered decades of creeping inflation, the slow erosion of real dollar value, and the gradual loss of purchasing power for everyday families. But the real acceleration came in 2008. To combat the global financial crisis, the Federal Reserve unleashed historic monetary intervention, quantitative easing, near-zero interest rates, and massive government deficit spending. This was all meant to be an emergency operation, a shot of adrenaline to resuscitate the banking system and prevent a depression. But like taking the dollar off gold, temporary became permanent. For over a decade, money was practically free. The government created trillions of dollars, handed them to banks, massive corporations, and Wall Street. Using new deposits and central bank programs, here's a critical point. This money didn't trickle out evenly. It went first and fastest to the giants of Wall Street and the biggest corporations. Working families and small businesses were nowhere near the front of the line. In economics, there's a name for this phenomenon. The Cantillon effect, from Richard Cantillon, 18th century economist, popularized by modern macroeconomists. New money entering the system first benefits those who receive it before inflation takes hold. So if you're a hedge fund, your millions buy a lot more than someone getting paid next year after prices already spike. For proof, look at asset inflation. Stocks, bonds, and real estate have soared. The wealthy, those who already owned these appreciating assets, become even richer. Meanwhile, consumer inflation has quietly been eating away at everyone else. Food, housing, healthcare, and energy costs are all up double digits in just the past year or two. Wages nowhere near keeping pace. Here's a micro call to action. Has your grocery bill jumped more than 10% this year? Share your story in the comments. Let others know what you're up against. This brings us to part 3. Bubble economics. The rise of the casino market. Because money was cheap and borrowing was easy, corporations used all that new debt to buy back their own shares, reducing the number of shares on the market, boosting prices artificially, and making their company look healthier without actually growing in real productive ways. It provided the illusion of growth and stability. This feedback loop created a FOMO, or fear of missing out, stampede into the market. Even professional fund managers openly admit it's gotten out of control. According to a June 2024 Bank of America survey, 91% of United States fund managers say the market is overvalued right now. Let me say that again. 91%. Almost everyone making a living in this world thinks we are in an overpriced market. Yet, these same managers are still fully invested. Why? Because, as one manager put it, there's no other game in town. Low interest rates have made safe alternatives unattractive, so everyone chases asset bubbles even as they fear the consequences. Curiosity loop. Ever wonder what happens if that bubble pops? We'll get to the survival plan in just a few minutes. But first, let's see what this means for regular people. Pattern break. Let's switch from theory to the real impact. Your budget, your job, your daily decisions. Part 4. Struggling households. When asset bubbles don't buy groceries, it's not just statistics, it's personal. Millions of Americans have been priced out of home ownership because real estate prices have tripled in many areas while wages, adjusted for inflation, have actually fallen. Retirement savings can't keep up with basic cost of living. Young people increasingly see wealth as a fantasy, something reserved for those who already made it or inherited a piece of this asset inflation. Real wages, when you factor in inflation, are down. According to recent analysis by the Pew Research Center, household purchasing power has dropped by over 5% in just 2 years. At the same time, families are cutting back on essentials. Grocery inflation has been particularly brutal. Since August 2024, coffee prices are up 40%, ground beef is up between 12% and 15%, and bananas One of the most basic staples up 10%, all according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, August 2024. If you're spending the same $500 a month on groceries as you did 2 years ago, your cart is a lot emptier now. This is a great moment for another engagement. Prompt. What's the biggest swap or sacrifice you've had to make at the store? Has your family traded ribeye steaks for burger meat? Or shopped new stores just to get by? Drop your story. Together we make sense of these tough decisions. And yes, some stores like Costco and Sam's Club still offer inflation-proof deals on things like the $4.99 rotisserie chicken and the $1.50 hot dog. If you're managing a family budget, switching to these bulk deals or stores like Aldi can make a real difference over time. But none of this changes the underlying reality. The so-called boom in the stock market is not translating to better lives for most families. Before we dive into practical solutions, quick pattern break. Real story. Just last month, a subscriber from Texas wrote in saying their weekly grocery bill, same shopping list, same store, had jumped from $124 in the 2020 to $178 last week. The only way they held it down, buying in bulk, avoiding prepackaged foods, and shifting to more store brands. That's nearly a 45% jump. Lines up almost perfectly with the reported 40% price spike in coffee and other staples. Now part 5, your 3-step survive. How to cope and even thrive in an asset bubble era. This is the framework I wish someone had handed me a decade ago. As always, this isn't financial advice. It's for educational purposes only. Past performance does not guarantee future results, and everyone's situation is unique. Consult a qualified financial professional for personalized guidance. Ready, let's go. Step 1. Get real about necessities. First, you need brutal clarity on what you actually need versus what you are told you deserve. Take 1 week and track every dollar you spend. Don't speculate. Write it all down. Highlight the purchases that are truly non-negotiable. Housing, basic food utilities, transportation to work. Set aside wants for later. Use a tool like MintY. Or you need a budget, or even a simple spreadsheet. Whatever fits your style, calculate. If groceries are up 20% and you're not adjusting your cart, you're eating into next month's capacity. Example, that Texas family's $54 per week. Jump times 4 weeks equals $216 per month more, or $2,592 per year. Where can you trade down? Is there a club store nearby? Can you meal plan or batch cook to reduce waste? Step 2. Asset protection moves. In periods of extreme asset inflation, you need to think defensively. Again, not financial advice, but here are broad principles that have withstood historic cycles. If you have investments, check your exposure. Are you overly allocated to high-flying, speculative stocks? Consider diversification as a risk mitigator. Mix of stocks, bonds, and for some, assets like Series 1 savings bonds, which are indexed to inflation and available direct from treasurydirect.gov or Treasury Inflation Protected Securities, TIPS. If you're all cash, realize that inflation eats about 7 to 12% of your purchasing power annually in the current environment. Example, $10,000 in cash in 2022. 2 is effectively worth $8,800 today if inflation stayed at 12%. There's no perfect playbook, but spreading risk, avoiding concentration in any one bubble, historically reduces shocks when markets drop. Remember, consult a qualified pro for your specific scenario. Step 3. Inflation-beating habits. This era requires a new set of skills and disciplines. Automation is your friend. Automate bill payments to avoid late fees. Automate savings every payday, even if it's just $25 per week. Find a side hustle. Or seasonal work, if you can, even if it's just for a few months. According to Indeed's 2025 report, the holiday job market is more competitive than ever, but certain sectors, like delivery, Amazon plans to hire 250,000 temporary workers. Hospitality and in-person services still have openings. Starting the search early makes a huge difference, as postings are down from previous years and jobs get snatched up fast. Resource tip. Set job alerts on Indeed. Monitor Amazon's jobs page. Check out local bulletin boards and online groups for seasonal work leads. It might not be glamorous, but even 4 months of extra income helps stabilize your budget, especially if your expenses have risen by thousands per year. Pattern break and curiosity loop. In a minute, I'll share the #1 budgeting move that most people still overlook. It's simple but incredibly powerful, especially right now. Before that, let's talk about coping when your efforts aren't enough. Part 6. Moving forward. Resilience when the numbers feel stacked against you. As the price of everything climbs, from groceries to insurance and healthcare to transportation, it's easy to feel your efforts are a drop in the bucket. Even the CEO of Mondelez International, bakers of Oreos, admitted that shoppers aren't spending more. They're just getting less for their money. If your income is flat, but costs are up, your cart shrinks. If you've lost work, seasonal jobs can be a bridge. Sometimes they even lead to permanent roles, or at the very least help plug a gap while you find your next opportunity. Gusta Payroll's latest data. Just in-person roles, and those less affected by tariffs or automation remain your best bet. Think delivery, hospitality, maintenance. Government data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics 2025 confirms month-over-month job gains in these areas despite slumps elsewhere. Practical tip. Make a short list of 3 closest club stores, discounters, and in-person job leads. Pick one to act on this week. Test a bulk. Buy a swaps-only meal plan or a new workplace. Track the results. See if your budget improves. Final pattern break as promised. The budget checklist most miss. Here's something simple. Create a must-have grocery list and stick to it. Nearly every report, from United States DA Food surveys to consumer interviews, shows that disciplined list shoppers save 10 to 15% per month versus impulse buyers. Everyone talks about the value of coupons and buying in bulk, but the #1 predictor of keeping grocery bills down is writing a list and not deviating from it. Try it for a week. Direct message me to mint with your savings. I love hearing real-world success stories. Engagement micro call to action. Which tip will you find most valuable trading down, diversifying, or list-based budgeting? Share your votes and why in the comments now. Quick recap. Why the stock market feels so out of touch and how to survive. We're in the middle of the largest asset bubble in history, with the market breaking new highs while daily life gets harder for the majority. You're not alone in feeling the stress, but by tracking spending, taking steps to protect assets, and building inflation-proof habits, you can take back a sense of control and position yourself for whatever comes next. And if you haven't seen it yet, I've put together a free budget survival checklist covering the steps I just outlined, with links to the best tools and a weekly tracker. Download it using the link below and share it with someone you care about. This isn't just doom and gloom. Community matters. We're building a financial resilience movement right here at Ray Invests. Every comment, every story shared helps someone else. Final micro call to action. Are you finding ways to outsmart inflation? What's your best money-saving hack that others should know? Drop it below. And if you're still watching, thank you. Subscribe. And don't miss next week's episode where I'll break down simple investment moves for volatility, risk returns, and true diversification, with real historical data and all the disclaimers you know to expect from me. Remember, this video isn't for educational purposes only. It's not financial advice, and past performance can't guarantee future results. Always consult a licensed financial professional for your unique situation. I'll see you in the next episode. Let's wrap up today's episode with what matters most. Practical action. Recapping the main points. You've just seen why the stock market and real economy don't move in sync, with $4.4 trillion companies outpacing the basic costs of living by a mile. We broke it down across 6 parts. The disconnect, how it began, how speculation and central bank policy have twisted the landscape, the pain it causes on Main Street, and most importantly, a step-by-step survival framework rooted in tracking your real spending, protecting your assets through diversification, and inflation-aware moves, and building new inflation-beating habits. Here's exactly what to do next. Today or this week, take an honest audit of all your expenses. Use Mint Winabir, a good old spreadsheet. Highlight your must-haves and trade down anywhere prices have spiked. Set a job alert for one seasonal or side gig you could do, and automate even a tiny savings transfer each payday. Over the next 30 to 90 days, stick to a disciplined shopping list and monitor what's eating up your budget. Look for bulk deals or role changes that add a few $100s in income or savings a month. In 6 to 12 months, revisit your asset allocations and make sure your risk is spread. Consult a financial pro if your investments or savings are exposed to wild swings. Use the free budget survival checklist linked below. If you want a printable tracker for all these moves, if you do these things, you'll see more clarity and control within weeks, more stability as you adapt, and positive momentum in your budget inside of a year. Even if inflation stays rough, don't let headlines dictate your future. Action and community are powerful. If you relate to these struggles, share how your grocery bill or daily expenses have changed this year in the comments. Let's see how widespread these challenges are. If you learned something new from the 3-step plan, hit subscribe to Ray Invests and share the tip you'll test first. Invite a friend struggling with their budget to join us for the most direct help. Download the free budget survival checklist below. It's the tool I use with my own family, and it's yours, no strings attached. And if you haven't already, drop your own story or question. You might see it featured in an upcoming video and help someone else realize they're not alone. For legal and ethical clarity, this video is for educational purposes only and does not constitute financial advice. Past performance does not guarantee future results, and you should always consult a qualified financial advisor for your specific situation.